So I've made the general for sale video. I wanted to make a video about this list. It's very long. So I bought this car off eBay, sight unseen, and the troubles just started from there. Let's just get into it. When I got this car, it had a 400 engine that somebody had tried to rebuild, did a really poor job. It had a flat camshaft, and one of the reasons is because they had too short of valve covers. So they had the stock valve covers on, but they had polylocks on the rocker arms, which are taller. So what do? You crank them down. You just crank them down really far so they clear the stock valve covers instead of doing the right thing and getting tall ones. That's what you do. Then you flatten your camshaft, and it makes it a nice drivable cam because you've reduced the lift duration, all that stuff. All right, and they must have had overheating problems because there was a fan installed. I think it's still there. Yeah, I put it back. There's a fan in the front of the radiator, an electric one. It's maybe an 8-inch or 10-inch fan. I don't know. It's kind of small. So that was there because there was no divider plate behind the water pump. So I put a new water pump on, new divider plate. They also did not have the diversion tubes behind the plate. And if you know Pontiacs, you know that those are highly necessary for proper coolant flow. So I fixed that too. There was also no thermostat, probably because they had overheating issues. So they tried to fix it with all these stupid reasons. Anyway, sorry, getting distracted because somebody's here. In my spot, my video spot, they had a massive 1050 3-barrel Holley carburetor on here, which is cool, but I took that off. It's way too much carburetor for this engine, and now it's on my 65 Bonneville, which can actually utilize most of that. It had intake manifold leaks where there were pipe plugs. Only the paint was sealing the plugs. Sorry, this is a boring video if you're just watching the engine, I guess. And the cam that was in it was probably too large anyway because it has a stock torque converter in the 700R4. The transmission shifter arm, the linkage was installed wrong, in the wrong hole for the 700R4. The transmission shifter cable was routed over the header where it started to melt, of course, and eventually it broke. The B&M ratchet shifter is all worn out. The old ratchet shifter was all worn out and junky. So I got this new TCI in there now. So it shifts and everything as it should. The gas tank leaked out of the seam. So I bought a new one. And I put the sealant in there and all that stuff, so it's nice and good to go. Somebody had chopped up the window regulators. I don't know why. Where the stud goes into the window crank, they had chopped the top off and kind of got them to work, but the cranks kept falling off. So I bought new window regulators and new cranks and put those on there. The suspension was stupid low. It was so low that bots, dots, manhole covers, and all kinds of stuff were hitting the headers. Now these headers are low, but there's still, at least there's clearance down there. Before there was like a ½ an inch of clearance between the headers and the road, which obviously makes the car undrivable. So now it's got new suspension, front and rear, new coil springs in front, new leaf springs in the back, of course new bushings there in the back too. So it's all good. It had no grease on the steering components, like the tie rods and the ball joints, so those have all been greased. Probably need to do it again, it's been a while. Those are all greased and should be good. It's got an alignment, even though the steering wheel does tilt to the side a little bit, but it did get an alignment. It had a terrible aftermarket alarm system. Wires everywhere that didn't work. They had an LED drilled into the dashboard. The hole's still there, but I pulled all that out because it was unnecessary. It didn't work anyway. So I pulled that out, cleaned up the wiring. The stereo, I think for the most part it's pretty good since I did all this work. It used to cut out once in a while, maybe a bad ground or something, but I think it's been fine for the last several times I've driven it. What else? Oh, it was missing the cowl grill. This was missing, so I bought a new one. Not a new one, but a good used one off eBay.
Smoke in the Bandit or what?
Yeah, man.
That's right.
Hey.
Fuck yeah.
Thanks, dude. People love this car, see? New wiper motor. Old one didn't work, so put a new one in there. What else? Had non-functional stuff in the, oh yeah, in the center AC vents. So it had like, I think one of them was supposed to be an electric gauge, but it wasn't hooked to anything. Another one's just a plug. So I pulled those out, got new AC vents, and I got a full set of bezels for this thing because it was missing a few of them anyway. And it had super bad paint back here. Like, I know this doesn't look the best, but trust me, it's a lot better than it was before. It's this nasty checked, I don't even know. It's like it didn't cure properly, or they had, I don't know, but it was disgusting and faded and looked like the Grand Canyon. It had like cracks and stuff everywhere. It's terrible. These wheels, they were all, the whole things were painted black, and they looked really bad. This part, these parts, all the part you see that's aluminum now, bare aluminum, was painted black. So I painstakingly scraped all that paint off. They're not the perfect wheels, obviously, but they looked so much better than they did before. I got new center caps and new lug nuts, and I think they look pretty sweet on here. The old engine always had starting issues, so back to the engine. I put new fat cables on here. I put a circuit breaker in here. There's a mini starter down there. So the old engine, I never could get it to start right, so when I took the engine apart, I found the whole bottom end was just really too tight, and the thrust surface there was basically no play. The only play, I think, was just because it had worn down to a point where the engine could turn, because there was just bare copper on the thrust bearing. It was a mess. So this engine's a 77 400 out of a 4-speed Trans Am. So it does have the crank shaft drilled for a pilot bearing in the back, which is cool. I almost put a 4-speed in here. The only reason I didn't is because these headers they're not really compliant with the Z-bar, but a hydraulic clutch setup might be the way to go there. And so yeah, the new headers, that's about it. There's probably other stuff I forgot. I've done a ton of work on this car. This is what, 25 items long, and there's probably other things that I forgot that I did that I'm not saying, but just because I forgot. Anyway, it's been a long 2.5 years with this car. It's finally to a point where I could drive it, and I've been driving it all the time, and it's really fun. It just, even though it's a stock 400, I really have no complaints about the power it's got, and it looks cool. Like you saw that guy, he loved it. Sounds sweet. There you go. Finish it off like I started.